But, maybe their silicon does become worth more. Enter fun segue. TSMC cuts down orders by up to 50%, sending shockwaves, says report. The Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company has cut down its orders to suppliers, according to reports in the Taiwanese press. TSMC, which is facing an industry slowdown as its customers struggle with demand slowdown, cut down capital expenditures for 2022 earlier this year, and the firm cited a lack of demand forecasting as the primary reason behind the drawdown. Now, of course, if we look at this on the face value, it's because we see demand slowing down, which means the price of your current silicon would not go up. The interesting question will be, of course, how does that affect it further on down the line if there ends up being demand re-increasing, and how long it takes to spin back up. But the firm is also rumored to have significantly reduced its 3nm output estimates for this year in the latest bit of speculation surrounding the advanced chip manufacturing technology scheduled to enter production in the current quarter. Today's report comes courtesy of the United Daily News and it speculates that TSMC has started to cut down its supplier orders. These orders form the back end or upstream of the semiconductor manufacturing supply chain, and they involve a variety of products such as TSMC procuring silicon wafers and other consumable to keep its machines running. UDN sources believe that TSMC has reduced these orders by as much as 50%, with the drop coming after the fab also cut down its spending. Due to the critical nature of the company as Taiwan's largest and leading chip maker, the order cut down has also sent shockwaves down the chip sector as a whole. TSMC in the chip sector has also been facing inventory corrections this year, and the company expects these conditions to persist and potentially peak during the first quarter of next year. The chip maker has, however, seen strong demand for its leading-edge 3nm technology, with its chief, Dr. C.C. Wei, outlining during a recent earnings call that the tapeouts for 3nm are more than double than the ones TSMC received for earlier technologies. In the chip-making industry, tape-out refers to the finalized design from companies such as AMD, which is sent to the chip maker so that the latter can tailor its equipment to the product. Now you can see that you have wafer revenue by technology here, and it has the quarterly earnings for the third quarter of 22, second quarter of 22, and first 3 quarters, right? With, of course, 5nm here kind of taking the lead over the third quarter in 2022. That is probably due to, of course, the new releases that we've had, which are selling pretty poorly, right? We were talking about how AMD's 7000 series sold extremely poorly. And that is primarily I think that's indicative of like the entire market, because what goes away first when the economy is performing poorly is going to be, of course, the entertainment side of things. And a new CPU that costs you, a huge amount of money to dive into is going to be low on the totem pole when the prices of daily items such as food and gas go up and so on. So we really saw it kind of hit AMD right off the bat, and we're going to have to see if that affects the rest of the market later on, specifically GPUs, which presumably it will. A lot of this to me does seem to be the fact that there is less chip manufacturing on the crypto mining side of things, which is affecting the chip manufacturing companies. The question will be, is after everything gets kind of reordered and the manufacturing comes down, right? The amount of manufacturing that's going out, they restructure it to basically meet what the current demand is. What happens after that if demand rises once again? We've already seen that demand is high in certain areas like vehicle manufacturing and so on. So if you start to have stress on it again from like the crypto mining side of things, if that has a resurgence, or back on the gaming side of things or something along those lines, what happens when the production is not ready to spin back up? And that's kind of where I sit as far as like wondering how this all plays out. According to TSMC suppliers, the order flow started to weaken in the previous quarter, and this has continued into the current quarter and into the first quarter of next year as well. TSMC shared during its latest earnings report that it is facing difficulty in procuring chip making equipment, and this is where things are interesting. to me is like, why are we having issues procuring chip making equipment, especially to keep up with its current customer orders? So this paints a different picture than the original kind of thesis at the beginning from the introduction of the article, right? This is painting a completely different picture. And that this, when combined with an industry slowdown, is forcing the firm to reduce spending. So, and this is the confusion that I have, and maybe you guys can line this out because I was looking at this earlier as well. What they're saying is that there is a slowdown of customer orders, but also there's a slowdown of getting chip making equipment to fulfill the current customer orders. So while the supply is going down, they're having issue with new equipment. What that sounds like to me, and I'll just throw it out there, is that the 3 nanometer technology is going to be in higher demand, meaning that there's going to be higher demand and they don't have enough equipment to actually meet the demand for the newer technology, while the demand for the older technology that would allow them to generate enough revenue to build or have more equipment for the newer technology is low. So they end up in a weird position where it's like demand is high and they can't make the products for the new technology, but the demand is low for the old technology that would give them the means to produce the new technology. That's what it sounds like to me at this time. On the topic of 3 nanometer, the picture painted by UDN is not great either. Its sources suggest that the monthly average output for the new technology was slated to sit at 44,000 wafers previously. And this has now dropped by a whopping 34,000 wafers to now sit at 10,000 wafers for a 77% drop. That's a lot. Key reasons behind this drop are reducing orders from both Apple and Intel. So they say it's reducing orders on the new technology, which blows my previous theory out of the water, right? With Intel's own technology also facing delays and Apple choosing to launch its M2 personal computers in March, these imply that TSMC will not be making any chips for Apple this year. And since Intel is also facing delays, its products, which use some of TSMC's chips, will also see orders flow in later. Today's report is the latest bit in a gloomy outlook for the chip sector, which was one of the best performing industries as earlier as last year, as massive influx of orders in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic and the auto industry led to more orders than the chip makers could absorb. And not just that, they're completely ignoring the cryptocurrency market, right? Which is like, yo guys, look at what was happening over here, right? It is always funny how there seems to be the big elephant in the room, which is how much of an impact cryptocurrency mining is having on chip manufacturing and how much of an impact that is having on the balance sheets for these large companies, even like AMD, Intel, even Intel, right? AMD, Intel, and of course, NVIDIA. And it seems to be completely ignored that it is tied to that to a certain extent. In fact, to the point to where we were looking at this the other day, the correlation between like NASDAQ and Bitcoin, which Bitcoin is still much, much more sideways trading than the NASDAQ. Last I checked, and we can look at that again. But where the correlations sit do seem to be if Bitcoin's going down, you know, the chip manufacturers are going down as well, because obviously mining does play a role in the amount of revenue for the tech sector in general, right? And I think that you'd be amiss if you didn't take that into account when looking at those particular stocks like TSMC, for example. The question will be, once again, will they get to the point to where they can manufacture the new technology and meet demand, right? In general, one of the interesting things, like we talked about TSMC coming out and saying that the US was not ready for a silicon production, right? And I'm wondering now if that was more of a marketing ploy for the numbers that were about to come out here. Because clearly it looks like Intel and Apple moving to their own chips and moving away from TSMC is also impacting TSMC. And that could have been essentially a PR move, a pre-PR move from TSMC before the news on their actual production goes, right? Because it may be the fact that Intel is getting quick enough to spin up their own manufacturing, and a lot of that will be here in the US. We were expecting that not to be ready until 2025, I believe, 2024 at the earliest. But maybe there is enough there that it is causing TSMC to get nervous. Interestingly enough as well. So thanks for checking out this clip from the Crypto Mining Show. You can check out the full episode here or more crypto content down here. Also, I'd like you to check out my locals page at sonofatech.locals.com, where you can become a member for free or choose to be a $5 a month supporter that unlocks additional content.